the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
So this is a great opportunity to share with you today on the Cale Clarke Show the very poignant story of the late Focus missionary who died at the very young age of 31 years old, Michelle Duppong, who passed away after a battle with cancer that took about a year or so. And she died on Christmas Day in 2015. And here's a clip featuring some testimonies of those who knew Michelle Duppong very well during her all too brief but powerfully impactful life for Christ. Check it out.
As if when she walked into a room, she asked herself, how can I serve? But again, I think it was her joy that was so contagious.
First thing that comes to my mind is her joy. She was always happy.
You felt like you were a gift showing up in her life. You just felt very, I don't know how to say it better than like blessed and ennobled.
It was a very peaceful death, And she carried her cross with such dignity. She was just a remarkable soul.
My understanding of Michelle's last year of her life, it was Holy Week extended to 12 months.
It was always amazing seeing her response to everything, just being docile to the will of God, never asking the question, why me? Why me? I've always been so faithful, or what did I do to deserve this? She never asked those questions.
You are touching so many people, like every person who meets you is touched by you. That's the truth of her, even in the midst of her sufferings and sickness and all the limitations that came with it, maybe especially there.
Michelle's life is a life of Christ-like goodness, compassion, and the firmest faith I have ever encountered in any person.
She saw something. She saw something in me. And I'm so glad she did, because that's why I'm here. That's why I'm a priest. I attribute that to her.
She knew my call was authentic. The most important thing was that I be faithful to what Jesus was asking me. And Jesus was asking me to be a sister.
That was the level of her thirst for Christ and the thirst to be a facilitator of the encounter with Christ between others. I thirst. Christ was thirsting for the closeness with his Father, but also thirsting for souls. And that was very evident in Michelle.
Wow, a beautiful testimony in that audio, courtesy of Focus, the Fellowship of Catholic University students. And you heard the voice during that clip of Msgr James Shea, the president of the University of Mary in Bismarck, North Dakota. And the University of Mary and Msgr Shea, they're such important partners for us here at Relevant Radio, and we so appreciate all of the ways in which God is moving through the University of Mary. And one of the things he said there in talking about Michelle Duppong was that her suffering in the last year of her life was kind of like a Holy Week extended for 12 months. And I read a beautiful, comprehensive article on her life, on Michelle's life, by Patty Armstrong. And that article is up on the National Catholic Register website. I found it very moving. I wanted to share some of this with you. And we'll put a link to this in the show notes too, by the way. And during that last year of her life, she was being treated for abdominal cancer, and hospital staff member asked Michelle, hey, what would your perfect, most ideal day look like? And she thought about it for a minute, and she finally said, my perfect day would be just four-wheeling on our farm in the pastures in Haymarsh, North Dakota, where she's from, and then having a picnic out in the hills. And that was just an incredible answer to her mom. And so Marianne, when she heard about this anecdote, that her perfect day would have been just being at home on her four-wheeler and then having a picnic, it just really kind of touched her heart, the simplicity of that. She said, man, we know she's happy where she is right now, because not only is her soul with Christ, but where she was buried, it was in the cemetery overlooking our family farm in Haymarsh, North Dakota, in St. Clemens Parish. their home parish. And it's actually amazing the way that Mary Ann, Michelle's mom, found out, along with her husband Ken, how they found out about their daughter's cause for canonization being open. It's an amazing story. It's so cool. And this involves the University of Mary. And in fact, it was the commissioning mass, which happened on June the 15th. And that was the following year. Of course, she passed away in 2015. And on the evening of June the 15th, there was a commissioning service that was at the University of Mary for focused missionaries, for the Fellowship of Catholic University Students. And those new campus missionaries were being commissioned by Bishop David Kagan. And at that Mass, he announced the plan to open up a diocesan investigation into the cause for Michelle's beatification and potential canonization. And Monsignor Shea was so excited by this news. He said, you know what? After Mass, let's go on a pilgrimage to her tomb at St. Clement's Cemetery. And so 500 people that were there at that Mass decided to go ahead and do it. So they traveled the 60 miles from Bismarck, North Dakota, where the University of Mary is located, to Michelle's grave at St. Clement's Cemetery. Can you imagine when her parents found out that this impromptu pilgrimage was happening? Unbelievable. And so everybody took turns that night privately praying for this cause for canonization to be open, asking for Michelle's intercession. They prayed the rosary at her tomb. Unbelievable. And as I was sharing this story with my wife Trish today, she said, man, just hearing accounts like this, it's a huge wake-up call for me. She said, you have to ask the question, if I passed away, if I died, would 500 people just want to do an impromptu pilgrimage to my gravesite and pray? Do I have that kind of effect on people's lives? It really forces you to think about your legacy, because this is what we're all called to be. We're called to be saints, each one of us. And Michelle Duppong's life is such a great example of this. So really, it's a good thing to think about. It's a good question to ask. If you were on trial for being a saint, would there be any evidence to convict you? That's one way to look at it. And so Monsignor Shea really talked to the Catholic Register, Patty Armstrong, about Michelle's life. And he said that she was really zealous about her faith, but she was also really practical. And she had just an absolute rock-solid confidence, faith in God's power, the intercession of the Blessed Mother, that souls could be brought to Jesus. And that's really what she was all about. She was all about evangelization. And so Monsignor Shea says that ever since she passed away, he has prayed. He has asked for her intercession. He has prayed through Michelle, if you will, asking her help for those students who are coming into the University of Mary every year. And every year there are students who come there with no faith. Maybe they have a nominal faith background. And he prays that they will get to know Jesus Christ. And maybe those who do have faith already, they're going to get deeper and deeper in that faith. And Monsignor Shea said, quote, one of the great lessons that Michelle's life imparts to us is the beautiful way that she entered into the suffering of Jesus. How beautiful to have the example of somebody who accepted with serenity both the joys and the sufferings of her life. And she never forgot about the power of redemptive suffering. End of quote. You know, when Bishop David Kagan, when he celebrated that funeral mass for Michelle at the Cathedral of the Holy Spirit in Bismarck, soon after this happened, he said he started getting notes, letters, testimonies from people about how Michelle had influenced them. And he said, man, when you start reading this stuff, he said there were two virtues about Michelle that really just leaped off the page of every letter. Number one, her joyful faith. And this is so important for us. And we at Relevant Radio, we always talk about this phrase, joyful piety, because that's infectious. That enthusiasm and joy of the faith really does draw other people, because we live in a world where a lot of people, they struggle with depression. They struggle with unhappiness. A lot of people don't have someone that they can really call a true friend that they can talk to. So then when they see somebody who does have that joy, it really is something that makes a huge impression. So number one, her joyful faith. And Bishop Kagan said the second thing that really stood out to him from all the testimonies about Michelle's life was her unconditional acceptance of God's will. And his will for her was, of course, suffering. And as that cause of canonization continues on, we got to pray for that. And Bishop Kagan said, really, her main goal in life was that she might share that joy of knowing Christ. Because, as Bishop Kagan said, quote, we need models of everyday holiness, just as Michelle has shown us, especially young men and women, married or single. They need Michelle's example of faith, hope, and charity. They need to know and see that real virtue is something for them, and it's never outdated, end of quote. It's true what he said. Whether you're young or old, whether you're married or single, it doesn't matter. We're all called to be saints. Michelle was not married. She was single. It doesn't matter. We're all called to be saints, no matter what state of life we find ourselves in. We can't put it off till another time, someplace in a mythical future. We've got to do it right now. And I think that's one of the things that Michelle's life can speak to us about as well. Curtis Martin, who founded Focus, the Fellowship of Catholic University Students, he founded it in 1998. He knew Michelle, of course, very well, because at the time when she was operational as a Focus campus missionary, there were only about 150 missionaries across campuses in the U.S. And today there's well over 900, probably getting close to 1,000 now. And Curtis Martin said, quote, Michelle had learned how to suffer, and she never got distracted by it. The spectacular secret of her life is that while Jesus left us in awe with his miracles, he wowed us with his words, the salvation he won for us came through suffering. And it's something that Michelle understood very, very well. She suffered beautifully, according to Curtis Martin. He said, quote, I really believe that Jesus Christ is asking this generation to be heroes, and you cannot be a hero without suffering, end of quote. And of course, that's really powerful. The hero's journey, a lot of movies, whether it's Disney Pixar films or superhero films, there's always some element of suffering in the hero's journey, redemptive suffering. And it's true in our journey as Catholics as well, as potential saints in the making. And hopefully we're all living saints, let's face it. Otherwise, we've totally missed the mark. And I think that you can't really fake it either. The people that know you best, I think one of the greatest definitions of success that I've ever heard is when the people that know you the best respect you the most. That's really hard to do, because we can wear masks in public and we can pretend to be holy, but that's not going to wash with people who live with us. They know the truth. And one of the interesting profiles in this piece in the Register was with the former college roommate of Michelle Duppong, and her name was Rebecca. She's now married. She has 5 children. She lives in North Dakota still, and they were roommates. Rebecca and Michelle were roommates at North Dakota State from 2002 to 2006. They actually worked together with Focus at the University of South Dakota in 2009, 2010 for those school years. And Rebecca says that, hey, as a roommate of Michelle's, it makes perfect sense to me that she's being considered for canonization. And Rebecca said that Michelle was very bold in sharing her faith. And she said that one of the first things that they did together when they were rooming together, doing their undergrad, she had to give a presentation. She had to give a public presentation in one of their classes. And she actually gave a speech defending the Catholic priesthood. And this was at a time when a lot of the sad news about the abuse scandals was coming to light, and it was getting into the public awareness. And there was a huge backlash against the church, against priests. And she was defending the priesthood, saying that, hey, the vast majority of priests are not guilty of this, and they're in fact living very holy lives. And so that's a bold thing to do, to stand up in a secular classroom where I'm sure there's a lot of animus towards the faith, and be able to do that. But Rebecca said she knew how to have fun as well, and she would have a quick and easy laugh, love to tell jokes, find the humor in the ordinary events of life. And Rebecca said she was so full of life, and that's really what we should be as Catholics. And St. Irenaeus said that the glory of God is the human person fully alive. That's what it's all about, living life to the fullest. This isn't the time for sad plaster saints. We've got to have the joy of the gospel. Absolutely. So this is really, really important as we look at the life of Michelle Duppong and what we can learn from it.